First things I want to do is go over the 4 main pricing strategies. These aren't the only ones, but they're the most common ones. And I would say 80% to 90% of the time you're using one of these 4. Welcome to the Listing Blueprint Podcast, the show for real estate agents who want to become top-tier listing agents and build a business driven by systems and not stress. I'm your host, Jeremy Reid, managing broker, 16-year realtor, and creator of the Listing Blueprint Fastest Path to Sold. Every episode, I break down one practical strategy or framework you can use to win more listing appointments, price with confidence, market with intention, and sell homes faster in any market. If you're ready to elevate your listing game and run your business like a pro, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey guys, I've got another good one for you this week. So last week we talked about price discovery. This week I want to talk about pricing strategies, but I want to go a little bit granular on this because we talk about pricing strategy in a sense of that there's one strategy or that we're going to get it perfect every single time. And what I really want to focus on this time is that the pricing strategy that you start with doesn't mean it's going to work 100% of the time. It means that if it doesn't work, we have the next plan. We have the next step always planned out. And when you think about pricing strategies in this way, it takes a lot of the pressure off to get the price right away, especially right now where a lot of markets are going through that price discovery we talked about last week, which states that there are some areas that we just haven't figured out exactly. Buyers and sellers haven't agreed what the firm bottom is right now, what things should be trading at in certain neighborhoods. So what we need to do is we need to fish in a sense. And our pricing strategy is kind of that. It's a strategy that gives us our most optimal price point, entry point into the market based on what our overall goals are. And then from there, we can adapt as we need to. So first things I want to do is go over the 4 main pricing strategies. These aren't the only ones, but they're the most common ones. And I would say 80% to 90% of the time you're using one of these 4. So let's break them down. The first one is what I would call the launchpad pricing strategy. Now, the launchpad pricing strategy is designed to get multiple offers. You're holding offers, and this will get used when you're in a market that's pretty active. There's a high absorption rate, which means there's a high amount of these types of properties selling on a monthly basis. Ideally, there hasn't been a sale similar to this in a month or two. And the reason that's important is that there's a buildup of buyers. So let's say that on average, the type of property would sell 4 to 6 every single month. But in the last 60 days, there's only been 4 sales. Well, that means that they could have sold, say, there was 4 listings that came up, say. So that means that there could have been up to 12 new buyers in the last 60 days that came up that wants that type of property, but only 4 listings came up. And now you can statistically guess that there's at least 8 buyers that are in the market that are going to want to purchase. So I talked a bit about a listing that I took on Bramble, and that was the strategy. We just said, okay, what price are we going to go at? Because we know there's going to be a lot of buyers that have been waiting for a property to come up. So we went with a launchpad strategy and held offers after 3 days, and it went over asking price. If we hadn't hit those 2 metrics, I would not have recommended the launchpad strategy, because you can get yourself caught in a place where if you don't have enough buyer buildup, you price too low and you don't have the opportunity for the market to bring the price back up to where it should go. Because no matter how good of a negotiator you are, whatever your point is, if you get one offer, it's very hard to negotiate above what your asking price was. So that's number 1. Number 2 would be called the seam line. This is by far the most used one. And that's where we look at a market that's basically it's settled or it's rising. This would be the 2 times that you'd want to use it. So you're seeing a market that has already settled or is starting to rise. Seam line is when you look at what are the last 90 days of sales. You find 5 or 6 good comparables at that. And you'll find usually in that scenario that what things have sold for over the last 90 days are not what things are asking for. So you're going to see that for rough figures, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's sold at 600,000. But everything that's listed is asking 625. Let's say that's a round number. Because most people give themselves negotiating room and they're afraid that they're going to get the lower offer. So that you'll see that. Now you got a seam. So you might list at 6099 or 614.9. Because by seaming, you're for the perceived market, the people that are looking at homes right now are going to see you as the best deal, but you're trying to outperform the last 90 days of sales. And when you can hit that sweet spot, this is going to make you, number one, the most desirable home on the market right now, but you're going to outperform the last 90 days of sales. So that would be a seam line pricing strategy. The third option is called a prestige pricing strategy. And that's where we intentionally put a high price, higher than what a lot of the competition has done, but there's something so unique about this home that someone's going to pay extra for it. So what we're looking for in this scenario is unique catchment area that someone else doesn't have, unique style of backyard, something that is rare enough that a buyer is going to look at that and say, you know what, I see why they're asking a little bit more, but I don't want to wait another 6 months or a year for something like this to come up, because my time is worth more than the extra $15,000 or $20,000 they're asking for. And I don't know for sure it's going to come up, and I want to be in by the school catchment area. So you need to create this avatar of this type of buyer that is going to want to pay that extra. Now, this is a bit of a guessing game, and I would say it's only used maybe 10 or 15% of the time. And if you're going to use it, make sure that you have something that people are actually going to pay extra. Because otherwise, you're just actually asking extra for no real reason. And buyers right now especially are not paying extra unless there's some kind of extra value that they can justify logically. They got to love the home emotionally, justify logically. And then the fourth option is the step down. Now, the step down pricing strategy is when we don't know where the market's at. And so what we do is we say, we want to know which price band we're in, because there's not enough comparables. It's a unique enough home, or there just hasn't been sales enough right now to really see where our market value sits. So in this case, we might look at what's everything that's worth $400,000 to $425,000. Now, what's everything worth between $425,000 to $450,000? And what's everything worth between $450,000 and $475,000? Now, we know we're worth more, or we're a very strong competitor in the $400,000 to $425,000 range. In the $425,000 to $450,000, we're neutral. We're pretty good. But the $450,000 to $475,000 range, there's a chance. We're not 100% sure. So what we do is we say, okay, we're going to go at $469,900. The only purpose is to see, do we have offers between $450,000 and $475,000? That's the only purpose. Now, we're going to run a certain amount of showings or a certain amount of time. Typically, it's a certain amount of showings, but if you're not getting the showings, it's a certain amount of time. If we don't get an offer, now we want to see that step down. Are we $425,000 to $450,000? So we might now move from $469,000 to $449,000, and we wait. And we look at a certain amount of time, certain amount of showings. Are we getting offers between $425,000 and $450,000? If we're not, we move again. And there's always a plan of where we're going to move. And I would say this gets used right now. It's getting used more because you will get places. And I'm using this price point for a real example. I sold a place on Thalassa a couple weeks ago. In Thalassa, in our area, is an apartment complex, and everything was listed between $425,000 and $475,000. And we thought we had priced as the best deal, but there was nothing that was selling because the market wasn't willing to pay that anymore. So now we went ahead of the curve instead of $400,000 to $425,000. And then we made the leap and we ended up selling for $390,000 because we got into that $375,000 to $400,000. We stepped our way down without just starting there because we wanted to do price discovery, but we stepped our way down ahead of the curve of the market to get the best offer. And now if you start looking at the comparables, you'll see a lot of them are starting to reduce down to where we sold because we just found the market. But we did that with a step down. So those are the 4 strategies. Now, if you're going to choose one of these strategies, the best thing you can do is figure out the weight class. And the reason I explain weight class is it's a simple way for us to think about when we put a home on the market, because everyone wants to think there's a static price for the home, but there isn't. There's no fixed price. An appraiser can't just come in and say it's worth this amount and it's going to sell for this amount. And it's kind of good that they don't, because that's kind of part of our job as marketers is to build the story. And that's where this fluctuation comes in. So price elasticity says that in any market, the price range of a home will fluctuate between 5 and 15%. And we know that because you can go into areas now that everything was built in, say, 2010, and all the homes sold very similar. But then you fast forward 16 years later, and those same homes are coming up, same specs, same size, and they're selling for a range. The range has to do with the condition, how it was prepared, how it was negotiated, the timing of the market. They all have a fluctuation of it. So when we're looking at weight classes, we're looking at it from the standpoint of which weight class does our house have the best chance of winning? Because you don't want to put a lightweight with a heavyweight. And you do see this quite a bit. And really what that's doing is making really easy for the heavyweights to win. because they're in the same weight class as lightweights. What you really want to do is you want to take a heavyweight and move it into a middleweight class, because that's where you can really control your competition. So weight classes, just like by weight, have to do with price points. And if you start thinking about this, I've taught this to quite a few realtors. I've talked to sellers about this a whole bunch. If you just pull, usually it's about a $25,000 to $50,000 price range, depending on the price point. That's usually what the weight classes are. So if, let's say, you're a $700,000 home, the houses that sell between $675,000 and $700,000 are going to be fundamentally different than $700,000 to $725,000. So the best thing for you to do is pull everything that's sold and everything that's listed within a weight class and put it on a spreadsheet. It's a simple way for us to see and look at the trends and look at what does a $700,000 to $725,000 house sell for? What does a $675,000 to $700,000 house sell for? And from there, we now take the listing that we're putting on the market and we go, okay, where are the buyers going to be the most excited to see this? Where are we going to be a heavyweight going into a middleweight class? Where can we cover our competition? And then when you take the analogy a little bit further, this is why price drops are so important and why I don't love, I'm not in every market, but I don't like the small price adjustments. It does give you a little bit of boost. But for me, if I'm going to do a price adjustment, I want to reach a new demographic of buyer. I want to go to a new weight class. So if I'm listed at 869,900, I typically, not always, but typically would prefer one big drop to that 850 class than one small drop to 859.9. Now, this isn't static. I do it. You can look at my listings. I will do $10,000 price reductions. But if I had my preference, I would go to a new weight class, because by going to a new weight class, we open up completely different competition. But one thing a lot of people underestimate is just how many buyers will stop searching at a certain cutoff. So the buyers that are looking up to $850,000 typically will not look above. If their max is $850,000, they won't look above that. Well, what does that do for you? That means that you as a seller can now drop to under that 850 or at that 850, depending on what your strategy is. And you don't have to worry about the $900,000 houses anymore, or the 880s or the 875s, because those buyers can't buy that. They can buy 850. And that sweet spot is when you can be the best deal that they can buy in their price point. When you become that, it gets them excited and it gives you a ton of negotiating strength. So that's weight class and that's pricing strategy. That's a bit of a breakdown. I wouldn't mind going a little deeper into this, but I think that's lots for today. Follow along for more. Email me with your questions. I'd like to start getting some conversations. And if you haven't already, please follow the podcast. And if you enjoy it, please give me a rating and share it with some people. I'd like to get more people watching this. I'd like to grow. And I can do that best if you guys review, follow, and share with other people that might get some value from it. So thanks for sticking around, and we'll talk to you guys next week.